This is Making Stitches, and this time we hear from Christine Perry, aka Winwick Mum, who wants to teach the world to knit socks, one pair at a time.
I'd been lucky enough to never be told that I couldn't knit anything really, and I thought if I can help people to just know that it's just stitches. Okay, the sock turns on a 90-degree angle, and I think that's what frightens people, because you've got a heel in the middle of it. But I'm thinking, I can do this, I can help people, and so I'm on this mission now that everybody needs to hand knit socks and wear hand knit socks because they're made to fit the person, and they've got no seams, and the yarns are beautiful, and you'll never buy anything that's quite like them. They're just amazing.
Hello and welcome to this, the first episode of Series 4 of Making Stitches podcast. What a thrill it is to be able to say that. I've really missed this over the summer break. In case this is the first time you've listened to the podcast, my name's Lindsay and I love all sorts of crafts. I also love hearing people's stories, so Making Stitches is the perfect vehicle for me to be able to appreciate the stories of inspiring makers who create beautiful things. In the past, I've spoken to textile artists, knitters, crocheters, a weaver, heritage craft maker, dressmakers, quilters and craftivists. And this series, I have more inspiring maker stories lined up for you. This week we're hearing from Christine Perry, who you may know better as Winwick Mum, the creator of the Sockalong tutorials, both on her blog and in print, and her accompanying YouTube videos.
Hello, I'm Christine, Winwick Mum, and I'm going to help you knit a pair of socks. What you'll need to do, if you haven't already, is download a copy of the free Sockalong Basic 4-ply sock pattern, which you'll find here.
Christine has inspired over 15,000 pairs of socks to be created with her tutorials around the globe. It was a thrill to be able to hear her story, and you can't help but be caught up in her enthusiasm for her craft. Christine, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to come on to Making Stitches. It's a real treat to get to meet you, albeit virtually. I'm aware of your work and have been for quite a long time through not only your own blog but other people's blogs that I follow, like Lucy at Attic24 when she got involved in sock knitting and so forth. So it's really nice to meet you. Thanks for agreeing to it.
Oh, no, thank you. It's nice to meet you as well, and it's been lovely to be able to go and explore your blog from the postcards from Gibraltar. I've enjoyed that one.
Oh, thank you.
And then you've got Making Stitches as well. So there's no end to your talents.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but thank you. If I just take you back to childhood or when craft first came into your life, how did it come about for you?
I think probably like a lot of people, you don't really quite remember the exact moment because there have been people in the family who did that. So I think I probably learned to knit at about, 6, something like that. My nan probably taught me. I think she taught me to crochet at about the same time. I used to be allowed to play on the sewing machine, and so it was always around there. When I was a teenager, I used to crochet more than knit because it's faster. I used to make soft toys, didn't really knit very much at all, and then the knitting came in a bit later, and I think when you find the one thing that gets you, it's like a dog with a bone, and it just doesn't let go. So although I can still crochet and I do still sew something very occasionally, now I just knit. That's what I do.
What do you think it was that reeled you into knitting then? Was there any one project that kind of clicked for you?
Yeah, very, very definitely. I was 18, and my mum and I walked past the local yarn shop in our town, and it was mid-1980s. There was the most fantastic jumper in the window. Oh my life, it was entrelac rainbow squares with black and white, and it was very 1980s, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. And I said to my mum, I've got to have that jumper. I've absolutely got to have it. I need you to knit it for me. She said, no chance. If you want it, knit it yourself. So we just went in and bought the yarn, and that was it, because I knew that my life would not be worth living if I didn't have this particular jumper, because, of course, being a teenager, I was quite dramatic about everything as teenagers can be. And that was it. That was the very first thing that I made for myself with yarn that I actually bought for the project, as opposed to being given bits of leftovers or there were very few things that I ever knitted with. Well, one of them actually was a pair of socks, which I did earlier, and that had specific yarn. But other than that, I only ever got someone's cast-offs or bits, or I could afford one little ball of something. And that's why crochet was better, because at the time you can make blankets with all of the bits and things in it. It's not always quite the same with knitting. So that was the very definite moment from there. And then it was like, right then, what can I do next? And I quickly realised that that my limited funds were not quite gonna cover these. So I made a few projects. I was working at the time, so I could afford a few projects. I was working in Manchester, so there was a Rowan shop in the Corn Exchange. I afforded, after saving up for a while, I afforded a couple of the kits from there, and then a yarn shop opened up in our village, and the lady who was there was very forward thinking, and she started stocking Rowan kits, and there was Kay Fassett and Kim Hargreaves, Sasha Kagan. She said, "Oh, I need some samples," and it's like, "Give them all to me!" And so I just knitted all her samples for her, so I was able to knit these fantastic jumpers, and then she'd have to wrestle them off me, but they weren't mine. But then she'd give me another box of something, and another one, and because nobody had ever told me that I couldn't do it, then I'd look at all these colours and the colour work, and they'd all go together, and I didn't think twice about it, because you don't. The other thing about being a teenager is that you're completely fearless. So because I didn't know that some people might go, "Oh, colour work's really hard. Oh, you don't want to try that." I just did it all, and that was amazing. That was where that came from, and that's where the knitting stuck, really.
Wow, that's quite a story. I mean, to see a jumper as a teenager in a window and decide you were going to make it, like you say, it's just having that blind ambition or that confidence that, yeah, I'm going to have a go at that. And
absolutely.
If you approach that in middle age, you'd be thinking, "Oh, no, I'm not sure."
Well, now you'd look at it and you think, "Oh, but it's entrelac, and oh, but look at this, and look at all those colours. Oh, I don't know." Whereas I was just like, "Give it to me. I'm going to knit it. I'm going to," and I did it, and I wore it, and I've still got it. And in fact, I might even have worn it on my very first date with my husband, and he still married me.
You must have done a good job then.
Didn't frighten him off with the woolly jumpers, but oh, it was amazing. It was some kind of almost like sparkly, cottony stuff. It was lovely. It was really nice yarn. It was lovely. But yeah, I think very much that's what sparks something. If we see something and we really love it and we really want to make it, then that's what's gonna pull you through and keep you going. And at the end of it, you might go, not sure about that. So, for example, one of the jumper kits I was given was 4-ply. It was a Kay Fassett children's jumper in 4-ply with little boxes and lots of different colours, and I loved the picture of it. And by the end of it, I gave it back and I said, "Never ever give me 4-ply ever again. That's me done with 4-ply." And somewhere a long way away, the universe laughed, because all I knit with now is 4-ply. but that's how it works, isn't it?
Indeed. Now, you're known for socks now, predominantly. At what point did you kind of switch from other garments and things into focusing on socks?
Well, the funny thing is that a few years before the jumper that I really needed to knit, I'd been asked to knit a pair of socks for my lovely Uncle Harry, who lived in Scotland, and his wife had died. And not only was he bereft because my Aunt Ella had gone, but she'd always made his socks. So somebody somewhere said, "Oh, Christine knits, she'll make socks for you." So my mum found a pattern, and I think there was a choice of 2 colours of this 4-ply yarn, and I'd never knitted in the round, never knitted with double pointed needles, but they were for Uncle Harry. So I wrenched my way through this thing. I think I ended up sewing up the gusset, and I was sort of like, never ask me to do these again. I'm just not. And again, the universe must have laughed somewhere, because quite a few years later, when my youngest daughter was very small, I was in a yarn shop, funnily enough, the same yarn shop where I'd seen this fabulous jumper all those years before. And I'd gone to buy some yarn for a cardigan for her, and on the counter were some coloured balls of Kay Fassett yarn. It's funny how all the connections. I wouldn't have looked twice if it hadn't been Kay Fassett, but I knew that I'd love knitting his jumpers, so I picked it up and I'm having a look, and I could see there were stripes in this yarn. I'm thinking, "Oh, this is really interesting." She said, "Oh, it's sock yarn." Put that down quick. She said, "But you get a free pattern." "Oh, picked it up again, ka-ting, and I went with the sock yarn. Oh, can't go wrong with sock yarn and a free pattern, can you? And then I got it home and I looked at it and I thought, oh, I've done these socks before and I didn't like them, but I thought, well, it's years later, well, let's give it a go. And the pattern was different, and I thought my husband will like these socks, and I made this pair, and somehow it was so much easier. Probably because all these years had gone on, I'd got better. I'd tried different things. I was completely fearless at this point, and having made one pair, I went back to the shop to see what else they'd got in the way of yarn, and made him another pair. And then I said, oh, is that all the yarn they've got? And then I looked on the internet. Oh, whoa! Oh my life! It was a proper rabbit hole. And at that point, I was just gone. It had just got me. And all I wanted to knit was socks, and that's pretty much all I've knitted since. A few things in between, but socks, and then that's where the conversations came from other people going, oh, socks are really hard, they're really difficult. And actually, they're really not. And I've knitted so many pairs, I know what I'm doing, and I can help you with this. So that was where that came from.
Wonderful. So, like you said, people were saying that they found it hard, and was that the impetus then that spurred you on to kind of sharing your passion and your knowledge with the wider world about the appreciation of sock knitting?
It was one of those random moments. Again, I think we all make these rash statements sometimes. Oh yeah, I'll host the party. Or everybody come round to ours, or whatever, and afterwards you think, what have I done? And I was sitting in a knit and natter group, and it was probably like the third or fourth person for some reason for that week had said to me, stocks, they're really difficult. And I'm saying, they're really not difficult. They're in bits, and you're only ever working on a certain number of stitches, and it's actually quite easy. And then I said, oh, right, that's it. I'm going to put some tutorials on my blog, and I'm just going to show everybody how easy it is, and everybody's going to knit socks. But because I'd announced it in the knit and natter group, everyone's going, that would be great. We'll look forward to seeing that. And it was like, got to do that now. And so that's where the Sockalong came from. And I just thought, do you know what, I can do this, because my background, I've had lots of jobs, but my one of my background jobs is as a trainer. So I know about writing courses and talking to people, and I particularly liked working with beginners. So remembering what it was like to be a sock knitting beginner, I thought, I can do this. I can help people knit socks. It's really not hard, and if somebody is really spurred on to do it, and then I can help them get from the start to the finish, and then they can just go and discover all the yarns and the patterns, and it's going to be amazing. And sometimes people have been told that they can't do it even before they've started, and I'm thinking, well, that's not right. I'd been lucky enough to never be told that I couldn't knit anything, really. And I thought, if I can help people to just know that it's just stitches. Okay, the sock turns on a 90-degree angle, and I think that's what frightens people, because you've got a heel in the middle of it. But I'm thinking, I can do this. I can help people, and so I'm on this mission now that everybody needs to hand knit socks and wear hand knit socks, because they're made to fit the person, and they've got no seams, and the yarns are beautiful, and you'll never buy anything that's quite like them. They're just amazing.
So you mentioned this Sockalong. Now, I looked at your blog yesterday, and I believe there's over 15,000 pairs of socks that you're aware of that have been born, if that's the right word, through the Sockalong.
Yes, that's every year on the Sockalong's birthday. It actually went live at the beginning of May in 2015. So it's been running for 6 years now. And even though it was called a Sockalong or a knit-along or make-alongs, they usually have a finite length of time that they run for. But this one just keeps going. And I just encourage people just to jump in whenever they want to. But every year on the birthday, I make a bit of a fuss, and I have a giveaway, and I ask people to tell me how many pairs they've knitted that year, and that's the number that we've got. But I know that there will be so many pairs that people have been able to make, or they've started, or they've not quite finished, or they didn't need to come back to the blog, and so they've not seen my post asking for numbers. But even that number that I do know about, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's immense.
And the well-being that goes with it, the joy of being able to knit for a family member, or knit for yourself, or knit for gifts, and and the well-being aspects of knitting are pretty well documented anyway. But I think that working in the round on a small subject, a small project, it tends to quite quickly let your mind do something else. So your hands are busy, and then your mind can just relax. And I think that the noisy monkey mind that likes to, tell you horrible things or keep you busy or have your shopping list, I think it's very interested in what your hands are doing. So as soon as you start doing something with your hands, and I think it goes, oh, that's great. And then your mind just goes, and it just frees you. And if you're in a waiting room at a hospital, or you're outside the school waiting for the kids to come out, or you're at a swimming lesson or somewhere, and you can just keep your hands occupied, it means that you can not be sitting there worrying about things. And people also find that if they are in some kind of lecture or a conference, and there's been a lot of knitting going on in Zoom meetings, you keep your hands really low in the room and what you can get done when nobody's looking. And there've been a lot of socks knitted during that, but actually when your hands are busy, then you seem to concentrate better on what's going on in front of you, and that seems to work really, really well for some people. So if I've been able to help somebody do that, then that's just amazing, and I love that, and I love that I've been given the opportunity to do that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so many people I've spoken to for the podcast actually have spoken about the mental health benefits of the craft that they do, whether it is very intricate embroidery or patchwork or knitting or crochet or whatever it is. And I have to agree, if I'm in a bad mood, quite often my eldest will say, have you not made anything, Mum? And it's like, that's what's missing. When you've had like a hectic few days and there's just not been the time. And it's that's the answer. Yes, if I can just sit down, my brain, all the knots in my brain all just sort themselves out. It's amazing.
I absolutely do. I don't know how it works, but it just does. It'll be something to do with well-worn neural pathways and hormones and feel-good factors and all kinds of things, won't it? But that's the other thing that I like about socks, is because they are small projects, then most pockets are big enough to get a sock and a ball of yarn in and your coat. So it doesn't matter where you're going, you can generally take it with you. And quite often I will take mine with me, even if I have no intention of getting it out of my pocket, just because I like to know that it's there and it makes me feel better. And I think lots of people are probably like that with their craft. Like you say, whatever it is, I don't think it matters. It's the importance of doing something with your hands and having your whole mind focused on that, and just letting the noise slide away just for a little bit. I think having that almost like power to do that is amazing. And I don't know how people who haven't discovered craft, I don't know how they've coped recently, and I hope that they've found something else, whether it's colouring or pinging elastic bands or whatever it is. I hope that everybody has managed to find something, because it's been important.
Without a doubt, absolutely. Going back to your own situation with this huge phenomenon with your Sockalong, at what point did it cross over from simply just tutorials on your blog? You now got a YouTube channel as well, and of course you have books. How did it progress over time?
I think there was never any particular plan. It all just seemed like a good idea at the time. That's anybody will say, oh, that's not how you run a business, and it was never really intended to be that. It was all stuff that I've enjoyed doing, and I like doing things that will enable somebody else to be able to do something for themselves. So the books came along. There are two books. One of them is the book of the Sockalong tutorials. So the tutorials themselves are on the blog, and they're free, and they always will be, because even though I decided that I would produce the book because people can't or don't always want to be online, and sometimes they like to look at a book, but I figured that it was more important to me that if somebody only had the money to buy the yarn and the needles or the book, I wanted them to buy the yarn and the needles and get started. So although the information is exactly the same, it's always going to stay there on the blog, because I think that the well-being aspect of that is massively important, and that's what I want to do. That's my choice to do that. So the book is there, and some people, they just like having a book, and I made it in a big size with big text so that it's big enough to prop open with your brew, and it's all written as if we're sitting together, because rather than like a formal textbook way, because I just think that we learn better if we think that we're sitting with a friend, really. So that's what the Super Socks book is. That was the first one, and then I assumed that once I'd been able to help somebody knit a pair of socks, then they'd be able to go on then and look at all the other patterns that were out there, and I'd provide almost like a springboard for somebody to then go off and go, oh, well, I'd like to look at this person's patterns, or this designer's style, and I really like that. But then it turned out that there was a gap for some people between knitting a basic sock and then looking at somebody else's pattern, and they some people were absolutely fine and some people weren't. So that's why I then moved on to tutorials for techniques. I did cables, lace, intarsia in the round, which is a fun thing to do if you've never done that before, and colour work. And they're all on the blog for free as well. And that's where the videos came from, because some people were saying, oh, it's easier for me to see with videos than photos. So that's where they came from. But then people had also said to me, well, why has Super Socks only got one pattern in it? And it's because I just wanted to show somebody how to knit this pair of socks. I didn't want them to get distracted with more patterns. All we're doing is we're talking through this one pair of socks, and I've got it on 3 sets of needles. So you can use a short circular, a long circular, or a double point. So whatever your preference is, you don't have to feel that well, I can't do this because I can't use double points. And some people, it is like wrestling a hedgehog, so I absolutely get that. But I just wanted to make that as accessible as possible. But then when it came to the moving on techniques, and that book's called More Super Socks. Oh, all socks are super socks, aren't they? But then I thought, well, I'm going to put some extra patterns in with that, and then that's when I really started to think about moving on with my designs, because I can, because it's fun, and actually I really liked it. So that's where that book came from, and then from there, because I suppose everything's just evolved. So then I was fortunate to be able to work with West Yorkshire Spinners, and so I designed for them, and then I was asked to design for some magazines, and anything that I can do just to encourage somebody to pick up needles and have a go at socks is amazing. So if all they want to do is the basic sock, then that's fine. But then if they wanted to move on and I can help them do that with a different pattern, then that's lovely as well.
Christine, your enthusiasm is infectious, I have to say. It's no wonder you've inspired so many people over the years.
You're going to be casting a sock on later today, aren't you?
You know that I am, don't you? You mentioned West Yorkshire Spinners. You've got your own range of sock yarn, I believe. How was that? Having been a young girl, and, from that young girl seeing that jumper in the shop window to actually having your own range of yarn, that must have been amazing.
It really is. It was, and it still is. It's because I see photos of it on social media. Somebody will say, "Oh, and I've knitted this sock in this yarn." Oh, that's my yarn, and it's so exciting. It really is quite unbelievable, I think, on some levels to have got to that point. But then in other ways it feels quite a natural thing to do, because I've known West Yorkshire Spinners for a long time, because the values of their company match my values. They're a family company. They're lovely people to work with. They work with British yarn. They employ local people. They really care about their stockists and all of that kind of thing. It just ticks all the boxes for me. So it felt quite a natural thing to do. If you'd said to me at 18, or now, whatever, just go and design your own yarn, I'd have probably got into some kind of spontaneous meltdown. But by the time it came to it, it felt like a very natural thing to do. And because I was because the blog was well established at that point, then being able to design around the blog and the themes of the blog, and then talk about that as I was going along, and I really liked to do behind the scenes posts. So I was, they were very kind at West Yorkshire Spinners, even before we started working together, and they let me go to the mill so that I could see what was there and write about it and show people. And I think that's important. I think people like to see what's there. I think they like to know stories behind things. So there were always stories behind the yarn. There's always a story behind my pattern, and so if sometimes I look at all of this and I think, wow, how on earth did you manage this? And then other times I look at it and it feels like quite a natural thing because of the way that everything's evolved for me, and the conversations that I've had with people as they've knitted their socks. The Facebook group conversations, and I've spoken to people all over the world, and I've seen all kinds of things that they've posted photos that I never would have discovered before, and all of that has made me almost like a bigger person. It's raised my awareness of things. I suppose much like when you lived in Gibraltar, it gave you a whole new experience of things that, going to a supermarket is going to a supermarket, but doing it in a different country is something different, isn't it? So looking out at a photo of somebody saying, oh, here's my garden this morning, and oh, they've got kangaroos in there. So wow, that's here's me thinking, there's a few sparrows and a rabbit, and all that's completely different. So all of that has kind of evolved over time, evolved into me, and then that all becomes part of the yarn. So I like to think that the colours and the stories that I tell that are almost like a two-way process between me and the people that I speak to through the blog, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of organic as it happens. Where would you say your true inspiration comes from?
With the first collection, the very first yarn that we put together was Hidden Gem, and that was based on an amethyst tumblestone that I always carried around in my pocket. And so the way that the stripes are designed, the West Yorkshire Spinners have their own very definite way that they create the stripes on all of their cocktail and country birds yarns. And they're lovely. I fell in love with their stripes straight away. But the Winwick Mum stripes are slightly different, and what we keep those different just for my yarns. But the very first one, and the way that those stripes came up was because of the way that the colours go on a chevron amethyst. So that was where that came from. And then there was one called Seascape, and that was holidays. When I was little, we used to go to Wales, and sometimes the sea was those turquoisey blues. Sometimes it was grey, and we'd paddle in our wellies. But that's life in the UK, isn't it? There is Wildflower, and that's out walking with the dog, and all the colours that were in there. Everybody will see those wherever they're living. They'll see those colours in springtime as they're going into summer. Those times of the year. And the last one was Brightside, and that was just about. With my blog, I try to look for the extraordinary in the everyday. That's my tagline. But what I've tried to do for a long time is I've tried to look for something positive. When things go wrong, then I try and think, all right, okay, I'm really not happy about this, but it could be so much worse. So what can we get out of this that's okay? So Brightside came from that really, and also the name was I think was probably subconsciously inspired by my younger daughter, who was absolutely obsessed with the song Mr. Brightside, the Killers at the time. So I was looking for a name for it, and I was thinking, Brightside, that's what an original name. And then the song comes on again. I'm thinking, all right, okay, I think you've just listened to that too much now.
It entered your conscious.
Yeah, I think so. It's a good job. I like that song, but it fitted perfectly because I was thinking but that's it. I am trying to look on the bright side of things. That's where that's come from. And then the second collection is Seasons, because I'm very when I'm writing on the blog, then I'm looking at the seasons. I'm talking about the garden. I'm talking about being out with the dog, and we all experience seasons. It doesn't matter where we are in the world and whether our seasons are the same. We still experience them, and so each one of those seasons is based on. Again, there's a story that goes with them. Spring Green is and the pattern is about a farmer that lived near us, a champion ploughman he was. He used to win prizes for his straight furrows, And when I was little, and summer sunset is sitting in the garden, and there's even just recently because it's it's the middle of September, but we've had some warm days, and we could still sit outside as it's starting to go dark. With your glass of wine, you see the sun go down. That was where summer sunset came from. Autumn leaves is dancing through the leaves, and we put these yarns together through the lockdown. And it seemed that everybody was noticing more the colours of the leaves, and whether that was because there wasn't as much traffic or just because we'd slowed down, and we were noticing more when we were out. And so that one felt very much connected to how it was that year. And then Winter Icicle was based on a special birthday treat when we went to the ice hotel in Sweden, and I realised that snow and ice isn't always just white. It's not always just that colour. It was amazing. So there's always a story that goes with that, and I hope that by me telling the stories and somebody else like, oh yeah, I remember going, paddling in sea that colour, or I remember going and seeing an icicle that or maybe the sun went through it and it shone a different colour, and again it's that connections thing. I like to make connections. I think we're all connected through yarn somewhere along the line, and I like that. I think it's magic.
I think the stories behind things just make people connect with a project so much more, because they can kind of put their own interpretation on things that you've done or colours that you've seen, because we're all surrounded by nature, and as you mentioned, I think a lot of us have noticed it so much more in the last 18 months or so. And I think that's, aside from having crafts that we can focus on that can take us away from any concerns or worries that we have, I think nature does that too.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think being outside in fresh air is, even if you're standing on a balcony, rather than being able to get into a park or walk with the dog, fresh air is magic, and it's good for our souls. And the more that we're able to just get out and breathe in it and just stand for a minute, I think the more we notice what's going on around us, and that's important, because we live on an incredible planet that's just full of colour, don't we?
Absolutely. Now, you've packed an awful lot into your creative life this far, Christine. Have you got anything coming up in the near future that you're able to share?
More of the same, I think, really. I don't have any plans to stop at the moment. So as far as the blog's concerned, it's going to be more tutorials, more patterns. I love writing about the yarn. I love being able to be out and about and see things. I will continue to work with West Yorkshire Spinners for as long as they'll have me, because I adore working with West Yorkshire Spinners. So that's I haven't got anything that I can tell you about at the moment, but I will work with them to the point where they're pushing me out of the door. And yeah, just more of the same, really. That's because I just love it. I'm not ready to stop any of it yet. I'm just going to keep going.
I'm sure all of Christine's Sockalong devotees will be thrilled to hear that. My thanks to Christine for speaking to me for Making Stitches. I loved hearing about her journey into sock making and how she's captured the imagination of thousands of wannabe sock knitters along the way. If you'd like to find out more about Christine and her work, please check out the show notes for this episode on your podcast app or at makingstitchespodcast.com, where you'll be able to find all of Christine's links. And Christine has been nominated in the 2021 British Knitting and Crochet Awards as a social media superstar, so do look out for that. Now, this summer has been a busy one for me, not sock knitting, but developing a small online shop, which I hope will generate some income to help pay for the running costs of this podcast. Since I began Making Stitches in the spring of 2020, it's been free to access all the episodes, and it's my intention to keep it that way. However, it isn't free for me to produce. I need equipment, which includes a steam-powered laptop, and there are costs involved as well in hosting the podcast online so it can reach your ears however you access it. The Making Stitches shop is about to go online, selling some podcast merchandise, including project bags, ideal to store your whips or stash in, which are screen printed by yours truly in my back garden. I'm also going to be uploading a few crochet patterns I've been working on, which are available as PDFs. Please follow the link in the show notes to have a look. That's all I've got time for, I'm afraid, this time. It's been such fun to be back in the swing of things with the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. It's been great to have your company. I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with more inspiring maker conversation. But before then, I'm going to be at the Yarndale Festival at Skipton in North Yorkshire. So if you see someone wandering around with a microphone on the Saturday, it might well be me. So please do come over and say hello. Until next time, thanks so much for listening, keep safe and enjoy your crafting.